some states in the Midwest, but my background is in higher education. I spent 10 years working at 2 different colleges as an AT specialist in the Disability Resource Office, working with EquatIO and implementing it with our students and across campus.
Awesome. So you can kind of see why we wanted Rachel on this call, right? So Ryan and I are not higher ed experts by any means, but we certainly have learned a lot and kind of know how higher ed uses our product. But we wanted to bring on an expert like Rachel, and we're thrilled to have her join us today. So Ryan, welcome back. How you doing?
Yeah, good, thanks. You took the words out of my mouth there, Louis, as well. I was going to say the only reason I'm here today is just to learn from Rachel as well. So I'm really excited. I'm really excited to hear the ideas that she's got for EquatIO too.
Yeah, awesome. So, thrilled to be here as Ryan is, and we are going to go into kind of our focus today, which is obviously higher education, and talk about how higher ed is using our product in conjunction with other systems like learning management systems, as well as talk about it from the accessibility / conversion, textbook conversion piece. So the first topic here that we're going to hit on is how higher education uses LMSs to kind of maximize communication and collaboration with students. So Rachel, if you can kind of talk about, how does higher ed use LMSs in their kind of workflow with students?
Absolutely. So in higher education, we're seeing a large amount of schools using learning management systems up until just a few months ago. It was fairly common in it to be used day to day. But now that there's remote learning going on, most campuses are using it every day for a lot of their courses, just to kind of get students involved, to have them stay on top of their work. One of the things that we're seeing more and more is we're seeing sort of an increase in it, making sure students are involved in classes, just making sure that, we have a place for students to be able to do their coursework, connect, things like that.
Right. And then that was before, the pandemic. It's like higher ed really adopted these LMSs and brought them to their institutions. And now, of course, Ryan and I have been busy on our end, to try and make sure that our product is compatible with as many LMSs as possible. And I'm going to go into a demo. So we're going to switch to my screen here. And I'm going to show you kind of how higher ed could potentially use EquatIO to show how students may or may not be using EquatIO. We want to, obviously encourage the use of EquatIO through the LMSs that we have at our disposal. And the first one I'm going to show here is Canvas. We might have touched on some Canvas things in the past with these Explore EquatIO Math Mondays, but I want to focus on the higher ed piece here, obviously. And what I've done is I've kind of built this just general higher ed module. And you'll see here I have a demo assignment and a demo quiz. So kind of want to show you how I built these and then kind of maybe flip to the student view to see what the student is going to experience. So you might take a look at this, and I have an example here of how a professor could ask students to complete a math assignment using EquatIO by TextHelp, right? So one thing I did here is I went into the edit properties inside of Canvas. I assigned this as, you'll see here, as an assignment, gave it a title. So I just called this HE EquatIO Demo Assignment. And then this is where we're really going to leverage EquatIO inside of an assignment in Canvas. So I typed inside of what Canvas refers to as their rich content editor, which really is a rich text editor. And I asked students to just sketch the graphs for the following functions. And what I did is I used the Canvas editor to type in my text. But I also want to emphasize that we do have a text editor inside of our EquatIO math editor. So I've simply launched EquatIO by clicking on the external tool button. And notice I have this really nice dialog box here. Now, unfortunately, inside of Canvas, I just want to make sure you're aware of this, and I know Ryan and I kind of complained about this a little bit, when we first started to play in here. It would be really great, like if Canvas would let you pick up this box and drag it to the right so you can kind of see the math that sits behind it. We did put in a product request to see if they couldn't eventually put that into their roadmap and move that box. So just kind of be careful as you're using Canvas. And what I did is I simply copied problems from another PDF, and I literally just pasted LaTeX here. So I could go here and I could, screenshot read the math. And let's see, actually, yeah, I have a problem queued up here. So notice I just did Control V, and I copied a math problem from another document and pasted it right in and hit Insert Math. I don't want to do this here because I've already done it down below. So I'm going to go ahead and cancel these changes, and notice what I did. There's the problem I just had in there. So I've already inserted that. And I basically am assigning students this assignment, right? So each time, now I want to emphasize this because I think it's important, especially with higher ed and how they, a lot of them use our accessibility pieces, is inside of Canvas, you may wonder, where is the alt text that some students need? So inside of Canvas, if you click on our math, remember it's an image. And when I click on it, I then have to go and select this little mountain icon, which kind of is a standard icon for inserting images, kind of in the World Wide Web here. So when I click on this, it will then provide the alt text here. So if a student needed a screen reader, you would be able to access that, that math, and that student would be able to access that text there, sitting there behind that problem. So you might ask, well, hey, Louis, why didn't you just make all these problems in one pop-up of EquatIO? And the reasoning is because if I did it all in one, then I would have a lot of rows of alt text. And I don't want a lot of rows of alt text. I think it might be challenging enough to use a screen reader inside of Canvas. So what I did is I made 4 images here. So this is one way. And then, of course, at the very bottom, remember inside of Canvas, if you're a Canvas user, you need to save and publish this assignment so students can then go complete it. So I'm going to flip over to quizzes, though, real quick, and just keeping an eye on time here. When I go to quizzes, I will see a similar, I just threw in 3 problems here just for a demo here for you. And when I click preview, this kind of does give you that student experience. So this is what the student would see on their end. Notice I've allowed the ability for the student to access the rich content editor. So then I can insert EquatIO images in and reply to this quiz. So the student, if they were asked, would say, hey, how do I make a graph of this problem? So I would open up EquatIO. I would then open up our Desmos graphing editor here. And when I click, I would be able to graph that and reply back to the teacher. When I'm done, I would insert that graph. The last LMS, so that's the assignment and quizzes features within EquatIO inside of Canvas. Excuse me, let me close that. And I'm going to jump over. This is one of our newer integrations. We have a lot of Brightspace D2L users out there. So I have already, to save time here, jumped into my LMS, into Brightspace, and I am already in my quiz properties. So notice here, I'm in a course. I've opened up a sample quiz, and I'm going to go and edit or add questions. So when I go to add or edit questions, I then am given the ability inside of Brightspace D2L to add questions here. And I can click here, and I can go and create any of these types of questions with the exception of true, false. Keep in mind, because it's either true or false, right? Most of these other ones will all open EquatIO without a problem. Let's just jump into one that I believe I've already created here. So here is a problem that I made inside of Brightspace. So just like I did in Canvas, where I typed in the editor, I used the Brightspace text editor to write evaluate, and then I put the EquatIO image in. So that right there is the piece of EquatIO math. How did I put that in? I simply clicked in this box and I inserted right here, they call their button insert stuff. And when I go to insert stuff, this will open all the LTIs that I have, and notice EquatIO goes right in. One thing I haven't shared with Ryan, he probably knows this, but Ryan, check this out. I think you'll love this, how I can click here and move that. So
that's nice.
That is a really nice experience, because I know Ryan and I were frustrated that the Canvas box, covers up the math that sits behind it. And I've never really had a chance to show Ryan that, so I know he'd appreciate that. So I can take that box and just kind of drag it and move it and see the math behind it. So it's just a subtle difference between the two LMSs, but it really, really could save you a lot of time, just the ability to drag and move that box. So that is an example of EquatIO inside of D2L. And then I even put in here as a teacher, notice this is all EquatIO math and the answer key. So really, really good stuff inside of Brightspace as well. And that's a real brief demo of higher ed and LMSs, but I know we only have half an hour. So, I mean, literally I could go for an hour on each of these LMSs, to be honest with you. There's so much there, but just to know that we do work inside the LMS, I think is very impactful. And it's why we wanted to show this during this little demo here today. So let's jump to, yes, ma'am.
And this is great for not just math and science classes, kind of your typical STEM, but areas that people don't think of that also have math in them. Things like economics and finance and business classes. That's something that, again, schools aren't always thinking of when they think of math classes, but math touches those areas of education too. And that's where one of my own institutions, that's where we got traction first in bringing the tool to campus, was in the economics department.
That's a really phenomenal point, because I often get asked, you know, can we do economic style graphs inside of EquatIO? And I think the real answer is can Desmos do those economic style graphs? So I always encourage folks to go to learn.desmos.com. I believe that's the website off the top of my head. And you can go and learn and see the community of graphs that are out there. So that's a really excellent point, that there's really math in all sorts of subjects, not specifically those STEM areas. But she's absolutely right. I've been asked numerous times about economics classes, and I'm not an economics expert any more than I'm a higher ed expert. So, but it is important to know that, you know, that's a really, really good point, and one of the many reasons why we brought Rachel here today, right, Ryan? So, so let's go to bullet point 2. What are the accessibility features for higher ed? So if you could just talk briefly, Rachel, about accessibility and higher ed, just kind of in general. I know that's hard to do in the short amount of time, but.
Yeah, I'll keep it brief. Other than accessibility is huge in higher ed right now. Most schools, if you haven't already started any type of institution-wide accessibility initiative, it's on your roadmap at some point. Making sure that content is accessible to all of our learners is essential in order to being a welcoming campus, one that allows all students to be able to get an education. And that includes math and science content as well. If you're working within the Disability Resource Office, this is already on kind of your daily agenda, is ensuring accessibility for all your students, but as a campus, it's important too. And so knowing how our tool makes sure that things are accessible is key. It's key for us, I feel like. So Louis, do you want to talk about it?
Yeah, so the first piece here is for Ryan to kind of jump into the MathML and kind of show how our product can utilize MathML. One really cool thing, and Ryan will probably touch on this, is now we include the MathML in Google. Where, you know, in that alt text box. So Ryan, if you can just kind of talk briefly about MathML and how that impacts users in higher ed, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Lee and Rachel. So as you mentioned, you know, accessibility is, you know, it touches every student's life. You know, every student in some way is going to need some form of accessible math at some stage. And MathML forms a huge part of that. So Louis had demonstrated earlier on in the LMS of how you could show the alt text in an image. And that's really, you know, that's really great for users who they're just looking at an image. They don't, you know, they can't maybe read it properly, or they're having issues with legibility of the image and so on. If it could read out the alt text, that's great. But MathML just adds that extra layer of information. The MathML, for anybody who's not aware, is just a little, it's a piece of text which basically describes the math, how it looks to somebody who might not be able to visually see it. And that's really helpful because the MathML can translate the math into different languages. You know, it might not necessarily be English, it could be a French speaker or a Spanish speaker, and so on and so forth. We have our read and write product and our SpeechStream products also use MathML to highlight portions of math. So it will highlight a letter at a time, highlights the background blue on the foreground yellow. So it makes the math much easier to read. And as Lou mentioned, we have a couple of features in EquatIO which will allow you to generate that MathML to aid in those situations where you need to make math more accessible. So the first place is inside of our EquatIO for Windows and EquatIO for Mac products. We have this button down here on the toolbar called Copy Math As. So if you're creating a mathematical equation in our toolbar, I'm just going to pick one out of the formulas because it's going to look more clever than anything I was going to type in the equation editor.
Right.
So let's go for the instantaneous rate of change. So I can insert that and click on my Copy Math As button. And in here, we've got a whole bunch of options. And the most important one at the minute being Copy MathML. And that will allow you to take the MathML representation of that formula and paste it anywhere that supports MathML. That could be in a web page or in an editor or another math tool you're using, or a composer tool. The Microsoft Word equation editor also supports MathML, so I can insert equation and paste that in there, and that then becomes a Microsoft Word typeset equation with the MathML in behind it for all those accessible features. For people who maybe they're translating it to Braille as well, that's a popular use case too, for visually impaired users. So that's the first place we've got our MathML support there. As Louis mentioned as well, we're putting the MathML into Google Docs now as well, which is helpful there too. But another cool feature in EquatIO in terms of MathML is the Screenshot Reader. So you can use the Screenshot Reader on EquatIO for Windows and EquatIO for Mac in any application. So for example, you've got a PDF with some math in it. You can use the Screenshot Reader, and I'm just going to take a screenshot of the math I just inserted, just for ease, and drag the box around the math equation, and that will automatically typeset that equation and give you a more options button that you can click on and do that exact same workflow again. So you can take a picture of the math, click on copy MathML, and then move that MathML into your math authoring tool or wherever it makes sense to make that math more accessible.
Yeah, that's really good stuff, and actually ties into kind of the second bullet point here when we're talking about accessibility features. And Ryan, did his best to kind of stick to the MathML side, but I think it kind of lends itself to the next point, which is really textbook conversion and how higher ed might be converting text on their screen. So on my screen, you'll probably see what I tried to do here is to try to provide a split screen for you. And this split screen here is going to have Microsoft Word because I wanted to show this in Word. A lot of our higher ed is using Word, although not all. But inside of Microsoft Word, and I don't have a lot of access to textbook publishers, textbooks and things like that. So I just wanted to kind of show this on what textbook publishers often share with folks, which is PDFs. And when we look at something that's somewhat complex, let me see if I can zoom in just a tad bit more on this. So let's say this piece of math right here, I needed this converted and moved into EquatIO. So this right here is sitting on a PDF, may not really be something that's accessible for students, but as Ryan kind of alluded to, we can pull up that screenshot reader either in Word or in Google, and we can drag that capture box. Now, is it going to be able to capture this whole bracket and render all of this math? Well, let's take a listen and see here. So it's actually reading this out loud in my headset. And certainly I could, switch this to where the audio could be played back, but you've heard me show this kind of in multiple instances, so we'll skip that for now. But this entire piece of math can be captured by that screenshot reader that Ryan was referring to. And I can go here, and again, I'm back to that place Ryan was just showing. So you really have all these additional ways to kind of be able to capture this math. In this particular example, I can do this in either way. But since Ryan kind of talked about the MathML, maybe I'll copy the LaTeX. So let's say I want to move this and convert this into accessible math. If I copy that LaTeX and move it and put it into our LaTeX editor here, I can then, what did I just do on that PDF? I copied it. So now I just simply need to paste it. So Control V and take a look right here. We're going to be able to take that math with the LaTeX, and we're going to be able to make that math here and then insert that into that Word doc. So I can then close this, and you will see, oh, I forgot. I was doing a demo recently, and someone was asking how people might be able to use EquatIO on AP exams. And apparently AP exams, they don't want you kids inserting images. So I showed them how we can insert word equations here. So I forgot to toggle that back to the off position. But hey, this is kind of a good example anyway. Notice now when I click here, these aren't really an EquatIO image. This is actually text that's in Microsoft Word. So I'm going to go ahead and scroll down just a little bit more, open my equation editor, and this is kind of good anyway because you'll be able to see the differences between these two. So now I'm going to insert this as an EquatIO image, and now I can clearly see that this is one picture of math. And then when I go here and click on the alt text, I would then be able to scroll down and access this with a screen reading software tool such as NVDA or JAWS or something like that. So this is how a lot of folks are using our product to do textbook conversion and to copy one line at a time. Ryan, maybe hasn't been to many conferences as I have in the last 8 months. I know folks, Ryan, are really anxious to possibly see somewhere down the road where we can't maybe OCR and copy that entire page of math, but I want to make sure that everyone's aware that, really you're copying one problem at a time. I don't know if you want to speak to that, Ryan, about the OCRing of a page.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's something that's been on our roadmap for a long time. I can confirm we do have someone, I was going to say in the office, obviously they're not in the office, they're working from home as everybody these days. We do have somebody working on that right now, and he's working really hard, and it looks really good. Not quite ready for human consumption just yet, but we are getting there with that.
It's promising, so I hear, and it's great to know. And it's just at least Ryan gave you that little blurb there at, hey, we are looking at this potential, and we will keep you all posted from the future, either video or blog article or something along those lines. But we would love to be able to do a whole page of math for you as well. As Ryan said, though, not quite ready for everyone. So last piece here, Ryan, if you want to hit on EquatIO Mobile just real quick in terms of accessibility.
Yeah, sure. So with EquatIO Mobile, I think EquatIO Mobile is a really, really good way to demonstrate, accessibility outside of the realms of alt text and, to a certain extent, MathML as well, where people traditionally think of accessibility. I really like the word accessibility and making math accessible for everybody who needs it, regardless of, sort of traditional screen reading software, that kind of thing. I think making math accessible is about making it available to everybody at all times, which is where I think the mobile piece comes into it really well. Because obviously, handwriting is such a huge part of math. It's great to be able to type math. If you can do it, that's great. But there are just some problems in math that are better with handwriting math, no matter how bad your handwriting is, like mine, and mine is most assuredly bad. So I'm going to show you how to use EquatIO Mobile to take a handwritten equation and put it into Microsoft Word, where it's not terribly handwritten and all the nice, legible math. So EquatIO Mobile is just on a browser. So you just go to m.equat.io, and if you have Microsoft Word open and the EquatIO toolbar open, it will just detect that you have a Word document open, and you can click on that to select it. And from there, I should probably move my screen down so I can see it. We've got three tools. We've got the handwriting tool, and then we've got our speech to math tool. So you can use your microphone to put math in there, or you can take a little picture of some already handwritten math and convert that as well. But today we're just going to show you the handwriting portion of that. So we've got our little canvas here. And I'm going to be doing this with a mouse, but obviously on your phone or your iPad, you'll be using your finger, and it's a lot more natural. And even on one of the iPad Pros, you could be using the pen as well.
Right.
I've seen somebody recently on Twitter actually using one of the Wacom styluses.
Yes.
And it looked really, really nice.
Yeah.
Just a really, really great way to get math from the physical into the digital. But unfortunately, I'm stuck with my mouse. So here we go. We'll do a simple x squared plus 2 equals 6. And once I'm finished with my fantastic equation, I press on the check and save as math. And it hasn't really picked out my very badly written x, but that's okay because we can use the insert button, and it will drop it into Microsoft Word automatically, and I can go and I can change that a now to an x. So it's taken that handwritten equation and it's put it into the digital format, and then once it's in digital, you can manipulate it and change it to the way that you want it as well. And from then you can use those same accessibility tools. You've got your alt text, you could copy as MathML, copy as LaTeX, move it wherever you want as well.
Awesome. So I know Ryan was showing that like on a split screen. It really is the best way for us at TextHelp to kind of show that. I mean, otherwise we're sitting and holding up like a mobile phone, and that's kind of awkward. So, and like Ryan and I probably would both like to be holding up a tablet and kind of showing you that user experience. But Ryan shows it exactly how I show it. But, obviously it is supposed to be, resembled in that mobile environment. So, really good stuff. It looks like we have, before we move to the next, I'm going to have you guys. Okay, we have a question here, signed on late. Is there a way to integrate into PowerPoint yet? So this is a really good question. Ryan, I'm going to put you on the spot here. When I joined TextHelp about 8 months ago, I remember I had this image of like, hey, PowerPoint's coming. And the reality is guys, we're like we're an agile company. And what that means is like, we go where the work takes us. So, with the pandemic and everyone working at home, like our developers, like Ryan, have been kind of moving to, to kind of make our product the best it can be in the current situation. We do have PowerPoint working on a developer build. I'm not sure what the timeline is for that. Ryan, I hate to put you on the spot here, but if you want to speak to the PowerPoint build and how soon users might be able to see that, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. I am definitely not committing to a time scale on a live broadcast. That's just not a developer thing to do at all. But you're right, Louis. We do have it working on a developer branch. It's just one of those other things we need to get it right before we get it into the hands of users. Right. We don't want it to be just rushed out and be spot, but it is on our roadmap, and it is not too far away. Yeah, that's the best you're going to get from me.
Yeah. So Rebecca, we are working on it, and like Ryan said, we just can't be put on a time schedule for that. But we know that that's something people want to see, and we hope to get that out to users at some point here in the near, not so distant future. So, great question. We do want some more Microsoft functionality, and the developers and myself, we are listening to customers and kind of hearing what they want and what they would like to see us move towards. So, thanks Ryan for answering that real quick. No problem. Rachel, talk about functionality, if you would, in Microsoft Word and why that tends to be, I don't know if this is the right word, but like the platform of choice in higher ed. I don't know. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, absolutely. So between 60 to 70% or so of higher education institutions are using Microsoft as their platform as opposed to Google. And because of that, we want to ensure that we have functionality within Word and within things like PowerPoint eventually. Faculty are used to using this, students are using it, their email is connected to it. Having this single platform is important. So how do we work within that? How does EquatIO work within the platform that higher ed is using quite often?
Right. So one of the things, and we've kind of touched on this, so this will probably be somewhat brief, but if you want to flip it to my screen here, the first bullet point, and thanks Rachel for speaking to that, is kind of talking about those additional screenshot options. And I don't want to tell you, the Microsoft piece of EquatIO is better than the Google or vice versa. I mean, I love it in both products. I think there's things that can do differently in both products, and that's probably the way I'd leave it. Is that, they each have their own unique benefits to it. One of those was what I just showed you by accident, which was like inserting math as Microsoft Word text. And you can't really do that on the Google side, so to speak. So the piece that I was asked to kind of show you here is how these additional screenshot. So remember the piece of math that I had up here earlier, which is still here. I just kind of left it there. And I'm going to drag a box around this one more time. And even though Ryan kind of showed this during the MathML side, it's going to play back that math for me, which is great, in terms of accessibility and students being able to have that read back to them, especially if you're using it for like Braille conversion, because you can have those audible pauses in between, especially for long and complicated math structures. But when I click on more options here, this is the piece that's very uniquely different than the Google side, which is you're given much more opportunities and many more opportunities, let's say, to do the screenshot feature. One of the things I love here the most, and I think probably doesn't get taken advantage of as much as it should, if a professor was to share this document and a student wanted to start performing this math, a great tool is to, if I actually went and I clicked here, and I didn't have this here, which a student wouldn't have unless they clicked on it and clicked Edit Math, is if a student wanted this read aloud first, they could drag that capture box around it. And once they're done hearing the problem, they can click here and just click Edit in EquatIO. and it should bring it right into our product. So that's a great way for the user to not have to retype something, for example. So that's just one of the additional screenshot options. You kind of saw the rest of them there. You can bring this math out as an SVG file. The other options is a PNG, which might be more universal. I know SVGs, for example, can't be moved into Google Docs because Google Docs doesn't accept an SVG file, but it does accept a PNG file. So it kind of just depends on where you want to potentially move this math to. Maybe you want to take the HTML and go bring it over into Canvas. So that's possible as well. So really great additional screenshot options there. And we're going to conclude this, Ryan, if you can talk briefly about the LaTeX, even though I guess I have touched on that a little bit even during this episode.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, I'm sure Rachel can attest to this as well, but there are still a lot of institutions out there using LaTeX to format documents. And you know, LaTeX is good. If you know it, it's great. If you know it, you can make things look fantastic, and you know it can be fast as well. But EquatIO it supports the full suite of LaTeX commands. So Louis, obviously you'd shown the LaTeX editor that we have in EquatIO, and it supports, as I said, every LaTeX command that there is. And not only that, but whatever you type using the equation editor. So if you're using our prediction, or you're using our handwriting tool or our speech tool, all of that gets automatically converted into the LaTeX as well. So I'll just quickly show you an example of that.
Sure.
So if we go back into the formulas, and we click on volume of a cylinder, and whenever I put that into my equation editor and flip over to the LaTeX, it will actually convert that into the LaTeX commands. And I can then put more LaTeX commands in there as well. So I can do \pi and then hat for squared. I need to put my braces around that. See, this is why I haven't been in LaTeX in a long time, and I'm trying to get a little bit rusty there now on it. And the cool thing about this as well is that the equation editor actually supports LaTeX commands as well. So if you're in the equation editor and you know you like the user interface there, but maybe there's something you can do better or quicker in LaTeX, you can still do / in the equation editor, and sqrt will put the square root symbol in, and you can then mix your LaTeX with your equation editor tools.
Right. I mean, one of the things I like about LaTeX, and this is really, pointing out how boring maybe my Friday night is, but I don't actually do this on a Friday night, but sometimes I'll jokingly say, like, you know, our product is really awesome that you could actually learn LaTeX in real time. And Ryan could attest to that. Like, you can go into our math editor and watch the LaTeX, formulate on the left-hand side, which is really, really cool. So I jokingly say, like, if you're bored on a Friday, like sometimes Ryan and I are, we can sit and learn LaTeX. So obviously we don't do that a whole lot, but every once in a while. But it is cool how you can learn it in real time. It's just one of those types of languages that a lot of higher ed institutions do use. But it's not something it's actually a great way. I like to say it's a great way to kind of cheat. So if I need something in EquatIO and I can't figure out how to do it, sometimes I just go to Google and I type in what is the LaTeX for, and then I can put it in the LaTeX editor in EquatIO and kind of determine how do I make this in EquatIO. So it is a great way, I don't know if it's the right word, to kind of cheat, but it does allow me to figure out how to render certain types of symbols and things inside our product. So something to play with for sure. So the last topic here, we're going to probably skip on because we're over time today, but it is MathSpace for higher ed. So we are going to attempt to do a EquatIO Monday episode that will focus on MathSpace here in the near future. I want to thank immensely. I know your time is valuable, Rachel. We appreciate your input today and joining us. You can see how much fun you've been missing the last 5 or 6 weeks that we've been doing these.
I'm glad I get to be part of one of them at least.
Yeah, right. So if we have some more higher ed, interest and people are reaching out, we'll definitely have you kind of join and, provide some more insight and wisdom as to how folks are using this. But, on behalf of Rachel and Ryan and myself, we thank you for your time today. And hopefully you've learned something a little bit new here inside of EquatIO. So you guys have yourselves a good week. And thanks again, everybody. We'll see you next time.
Everyone.
See ya.
Thanks,
all right. Bye-bye.
Bye.